I've owned my Tesla Model 3 for about a month now, and I've driven it almost 4,000 miles, and I absolutely love this car. And I wanted to take a little bit of time just to share with you guys my initial thoughts on owning a Tesla Model 3. Now, I absolutely love this car. There's a lot of things that Tesla got right with it, but nothing's perfect. And along with that comes a few gripes, and I'll share that in this video as well. But let's start out with some of the pros. What do I really like about this vehicle? Now, one of the things that I really love about this car, first and foremost, is the design. I love how the exterior looks of the car. I love the minimal interior and how there's only the 15-inch display right in the center of the vehicle that has everything. There's minimal buttons. There's just not a lot to it. And for someone who's a minimalist like me, I absolutely love that. Now, some people don't like the chrome. I chose to go with the pearl white, and I think that the chrome just looks excellent on that version. But I do know some people choose to delete the chrome if they have like a darker vehicle because it stands out a lot more. But if you get the pearl white, which is the free color, maybe stick with the chrome. I absolutely love it. The next thing is this vehicle is actually very comfortable to ride in and to drive. I like using it as my daily commuter, which I'm doing about 80 miles round trip to and from work. But because it's so comfortable and it's a smooth ride, I look for like opportunities to get in the car and just drive. So even if my wife doesn't ask me to go somewhere, I still volunteer to hop in the car and just drive because the experience of driving a Tesla is just that nice and that comfortable. Which brings me to my next point, and that is autopilot. So a lot of people know Teslas for the autopilot. They kind of have pioneered the electric vehicle industry, and their autopilot is unlike anything else that's on the market right now. It makes driving a lot less taxing on you mentally and physically. Now, I chose to just go with enhanced autopilot instead of full self-driving, which I'll do a video as to why that is later. But even just having the enhanced autopilot makes my drive that much more easier. I love being able to get in the car, especially on the highway, and just set the autopilot, and it'll keep me in my lane. It'll do all the accelerating and braking for me. And it also has been proven to be slightly safer than a human driving behind the wheel because with the cameras and sensors that are around it, it's able to detect an impending crash a lot sooner than maybe a human could. The next thing I like about this car is the software updates. Now, since I took delivery of my Model 3 about a month ago, I've gotten 3 software updates. And I think this is something that really sets the vehicle apart from anything else out there. Most cars, when you purchase them, they depreciate in value because it's the same car and stuff starts to break down and it's just not as valuable anymore because of that. Well, Teslas, because they get software updates, doesn't make the value appreciate, but it does help to slow down that depreciation. And Tesla's always adding new features through these software updates and making little tweaks and making the car better with every software update that comes out. So I really like that. Not only the ideology behind it, but it's made my experience get gradually better and better each time I get an update. And even the autopilot has gotten better since I picked up my Model 3. And then one of the last things that I'll hit on as a pro is when you own an electric vehicle, if you can set up charging at your home, it's just very convenient. So I tried to do the slow trickle charging or charge off of a 120 volt outlet for maybe about 2 or 3 weeks. And for most people, that's going to be enough. If you drive less than 60 miles a day, maybe you're just doing errands and running around town, then that 120 volt outlet is going to be enough for you to get a full charge every single day and not really have to worry about range as much. But because I drive a little further in my commute, I chose to put in a NEMA 1450 outlet, which is 240 volts, and it allows me to charge the car in about 3 to 5 hours, depending on how much I need to charge. And that's just really convenient. But yeah, it's just nice being able to come home, pull up, plug in, and not have to worry about stopping at a gas station and having enough range to get to work the next day. All right, so let's talk about some of the cons. Now, don't get me wrong, like I mentioned, I absolutely love the car, but nothing's 100% perfect. So one of the first things that I want to talk about is the frunk. Now, I really think it's a cool idea to have something on the front of the car, since there is no engine, to be able to use for storage. But one of the things that bugs me about it is it's not an automatic frunk. Now, usually this wouldn't bother me, even though I've heard some people say that it's a luxury vehicle and it should have a feature like that to be able to open the frunk automatically and close it as well. But I don't really think that's the problem. I think the issue is the way that you have to close the frunk is so specific that it makes it difficult to even use it properly. So for instance, you might grab something out of the frunk, and because you have to close it with two hands pressed on both sides of the Tesla logo on the front, a lot of times I'll have things in my hand that I just pulled out of the frunk that now I have to set on the ground or fumble with to try to get the frunk to close. Now, I don't know if that's intentional or by design. I just think it's an oversight probably on Tesla's part, and it would be nice to see that if they redesign the Tesla Model 3 in the future, to include an automatic frunk. Alright, the next thing we have to talk about is the paint job. So I stay here in Michigan, where we do put a lot of salt on the roads. There's tar, there's a lot of other construction going on throughout the year. So I don't necessarily expect the paint job to stand up and last a very long time, unless you get some kind of paint protective film or get the car wrapped. But in all honesty, cars here in Michigan, when they're manufactured, because they're made with different components in the paint, they do stand up to the weather and the road conditions a whole lot better than my Tesla Model 3 has. I know there's certain additives that they cannot use in California, but I've had the car for only a month and I'm already starting to see paint chips that are pretty visible. Now, Tesla does offer for you to be able to purchase a paint filler kit where you can fill in those, but unfortunately right now it's sold out in my color. So I would like to see in the future Tesla look at something like this to see if there's something they can implement to make the paint just a little bit more sturdier, so that people don't have to spend additional money on top of purchasing the vehicle just to keep it from getting paint chips that they would get from normal wear and tear. Along with that, we have to talk about the build quality. Now, when the Tesla Model 3 first came out, a lot of people had build quality issues, whether it was gaps or paint issues. Now, I will say that has not been my experience purchasing one in early/mid 2020. But if you guys followed me on social media, which there's my tag right there, feel free to follow me there. But if you followed me, you know that when I picked up my Tesla Model 3, I had a small crack in the top glass. Now, I don't know if it got damaged while it was being transported to the location where I picked it up, or if it came off the line like that. But when you go to pick up a brand new vehicle, something like that should not exist. It should not happen. And Tesla was very good about getting it fixed. Now, I will give them that. They did repair the glass, no cost to me. But I did have to take a day off of work. I did have to make the appointment, which it took 2 weeks to get in just for them to be able to do the work. And like I mentioned before, that's not something that you should typically have to deal with a new vehicle. So I would like to see Tesla step up maybe their quality control just a little bit to make sure that when a person takes delivery of their car, it's just as pristine as when it came off of the line. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is range anxiety, and unfortunately it is a real thing. I did not think it would be that bad when I would watch other Tesla videos or I would do research and say that, okay, 250, 300 miles of range is going to be more than enough for getting around, which it is, but you will feel when you first get it a lot of anxiety about, will I have enough range to get to my destination? Will I run out of charge? Like, you will feel that. Now, I have not one time come close to actually running out of range while driving. I've done 2 road trips since I purchased the vehicle. The first couple of weeks, it took some time for me to get used to driving an electric vehicle and worrying about those things. They do have a setting where you can change it between looking at your battery percentage and how many miles till empty. But something to keep in mind is, depending on whether you're running the air conditioning unit, which you may or may not be able to hear right now, or if you're running heat or the seat warmers, those all eat into your battery. So that advertised 250 miles of range that you see with the standard range plus may not actually be what you actually get. It's more like 210, 215 miles in reality. So like I said, this will take some getting used to, but if you charge nightly like I do, you typically won't have to worry about it. Supercharging is great too because they're conveniently located. You can always stop at a supercharger if you feel like you won't have enough range to get home. But it is something to get used to. And the last thing we have to talk about is, even though I mentioned it in the pros section, I'm also going to put this in the cons, and that is autopilot. Now, I know Elon Musk has been speaking a lot about level 5 autonomy, where the vehicle will be able to drive itself without having any assistance from a human driver. But in its current state right now, autopilot is not that smart sometimes. But I do notice that the way that autopilot tends to drive is what makes sense to artificial intelligence and not necessarily to a human. So for example, there's times where I'm driving on autopilot, and because autopilot is maintaining my speed and keeping me in the lane, sometimes it'll keep me in a person's blind spot, which no one typically drives in another person's blind spot. It's just asking for trouble. Now, I know that Tesla has built in some safety features to help it to decelerate when it needs to, if a car should come into your lane, but it just really makes you nervous and anxious just driving in someone's blind spot unnecessarily. There are also times where autopilot will stop suddenly. I think it's like phantom braking because it thinks that it sees something in the road that's not actually there. Or maybe there's a vehicle that pulls in front of you. It will brake unnecessarily hard or not brake quick enough so that you feel like you have to take over for manual control. And those are the little things that I'm talking about. Those are the things that when I think of autopilot, it should know when to brake, when to accelerate, where it should be on the road at all times. That's the only time that, like, at least for me, I will feel comfortable with just letting autopilot do all of the driving and taking my hands off and maybe being able to do other things with that type of autonomy. Don't get me wrong, I do like the feature. I just don't think it's quite where it needs to be. So like I mentioned, all in all, I really love my Tesla Model 3. I think it's an excellent vehicle. It's an excellent buy. This is probably one of the few things that I've ever bought in my entire life that I have not had some sort of buyer's remorse or felt some kind of way about buying it. I just wanted to share my initial thoughts with you guys after owning the vehicle for about a month. So would I recommend someone buy a Tesla Model 3? Absolutely. So let me know in the comments down below, what do you like if you own a Tesla Model 3? And remember to subscribe and hit that bell so that it helps with the YouTube algorithm. And I look forward to bringing you guys more content in the future. But till then, everybody take care, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.